Hi YouTube, back to Basics Gal here again. Today I'm going to share with you an original long-term survival food called pemmican. The American Indians used to make this out of venison, moose, caribou, and you can use beef. Other meat is not recommended. Here you can see I cut a beef tip roast. I cut it very thin. I'm going to have to dehydrate this until it is brittle. You can use this in your oven, set it the lowest temperature, but I think it will take quite a while to do that. Here I dried it in my dehydrator for 12 hours until it became brittle. You're going to need a food processor, a dried berry, and some beef suet that's been rendered and cleaned. You're going to put the dried beef in a food processor. I guess you could use a blender or a mortar and pestle. You're going to want to get this, finely shredded. The food processor is definitely the easiest way to do it. I guess you could use a blender, but here you see how powdery it is. I'm adding to that my dried blueberries. You can use raisins, elderberries, dried tart cherries. I would try to stay with those kind of dried fruits. Anyway, here I'm gonna mix the berries with the dried beef, powdered dried beef. You're gonna want to do that prior to mixing in the suet, which I have to melt yet. It does tend to start to seize pretty darn quick once you add the beef suet to it. So here I'm going to take a smaller spatula to mix this all up. I did find online that other recipes had other things added like nuts and honey and salt. This is the original recipe from the research I did. I actually made this recipe using elderberries before I did a YouTube video. I wanted to try it out to see how it tasted. I also wanted to see if I could cut the suet content of the recipe, and guess what? You can't. It says a cup of suet. You need to use a cup of rendered suet in your recipe. I will post the amounts below. Since it's deer hunting season, I would be willing to bet that this would be really good with some venison. I did not, we haven't been lucky enough to get a deer yet this year, so I'm using a beef for my recipe. This will definitely store for a very, very long time. I would think that if you added nuts that it would go rancid quicker because of the oil content. That was one of the big reasons I wanted to make this how the Indians made it. I want to do an experiment to see how long this stuff will actually last. They said for years. So I wanna test that theory out. It does taste good. I'm just hoping it lasts that long. But here you can see it's starting to bind up pretty quick. So I lined a glass pan here and with parchment paper, and when I originally had made this, I made it a lot thinner. I definitely think it would be better if you made it about a ½ inch thick. So I'm going to be pushing this down into the pan and forming it into about a ½ inch thick slab, so I can cut it into little candy bar size pieces. I want to get all this out, but you can see it's starting to seize up on me, so I'm going to have to work pretty darn quick to get this flattened down. I thought the blueberries would taste really good in this. This year was a really good year for blueberries. I dried some raspberries from our raspberry patch, and I was lucky with some blueberries this year. Last year we didn't get very many blueberries at all. This year we had like a bumper crop of blueberries. So those were dried pretty well too. Anyway, just smash this into the pan, and like I said, about a ½ inch thick slab. I'm going to try to make it so that I have nice even edges, so when I cut it, And I tried to roll this out with a rolling pin the first time. Uh, I I came to the conclusion it's a lot easier to get this pushed down with your, using your hands and the parchment paper. You could use wax paper, um, but you definitely want to make sure you get it packed together, and about a ½ inch slab I think would be perfect. Anything smaller than that, it didn't turn out so well. Anyway, here I let it set up in the refrigerator overnight. And it's about a ½ inch thick. I've already tasted it. This stuff actually is pretty darn good. The only thing I would add, if I was going to add something, would maybe be a little bit of salt. I think it'd be good with the salt and the sweetness of the blueberry. I wrapped this in saran wrap, then I put the parchment paper over that, then I put it into tin foil to store. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it. This is Back to Basics Gal, and as always, thank you so much for stopping by.